I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by. And that has made all of the difference. Come with us now as we travel down the road to adventure. As we travel down the road less traveled. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Road Less Traveled, episode 17. I am your humble host, Mr. Dennis Carroll, and this is our other humble host, Mr. Gerald Fountain. Good evening, sir.
How you doing?
All right. We have some interesting stuff ahead of us tonight on the show. We're going to be talking about forgotten and forbidden books there. Okay. Some really interesting books out there. We're going to be talking about that. How you been doing today?
Good. Been nice weather
out. Last show you were under the weather a little bit.
Yeah, still not 100%, but I'm doing better. And I don't know if I caught a stomach bug or a little touch of flu or what it was, but it's giving me horrible indigestion.
We need to get you back to 100%. Finest frog has split three ways. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, this is you picked out the subject this week, and this is a very interesting subject. There are a lot of strange and mysterious books in the world. There are some that don't even exist that people look for. We're going to talk about that later on. But we've got a lot of ground to cover tonight on it. Got a lot of pictures for all the folks out there. I want to welcome everybody to the chat. Roger Blair, Shiro, Catherine, and Wizard Moon, and Demaria, and let's see who else we got. Mr. Kyle Smith. Yes, sir. Welcome, everybody. We've got some announcements to make. I am dropping episodes of the Midnight Road Excursions into the Unknown. You will find them on my YouTube channel. I'm going to talk about my YouTube channel later on in the podcast, so stick around for that. We also got of course, Hunting the Shadows coming up Wednesday night, and Friday night, Paranormal Point of View. Got a bunch of movies to talk to you about for that. And what you got cooking, Joe?
Oh, all kinds of stuff. Always busy. We got night out. We got our night out lounge.
Yeah, you're one of the busiest guys I know.
Yeah, we got the Night Owl Lounge. We got Geezer Geeks on Saturday. And then Sunday we have our show, which we might be switching times 4 p.m. I kind of like that 4 p.m. schedule. It was kind of nice. And we get UK people and Australia people showing up. And so that's kind of nice. And then Mondays, obviously, I had the Road Less Traveled with you. And we may end up making another show during the week at like the 4 p.m. during the middle of the week. So we just haven't picked a day yet.
Okay. Sounds like it's going to be a busy week ahead for you. Yes, sir. Also, you've got a store now. That's what I hear. You got some merchandise. Is that right?
Yep. Including this shirt with our logo on it. And Jane has her logos on coffee cups and shirts and stuff. And
that sounds interesting. Absolutely. He's got a store. You don't take personal checks, is that?
No, afraid not.
You take gold, though, right? If anybody wants to ship you any gold, you'll take that, right? I guarantee you.
That's right.
Absolutely. Well, I get a link up to that. I'll put it up during the show here. And we also want to talk about our good friend Jessica Jones, the Cryptid Huntress. She had an excellent show today with another good friend of ours, Mr. Barry Littleton. Hadn't seen him in a while. I'm gonna get him on my show on that. We got some more to talk about here. I'm gonna get him on the show and talk movies with him.
Oh yeah.
He's a real big movie.
We got Barry coming up in November. I think Jessica's coming on in November.
Yeah. And also, if everything works out, I'm going to have Mr. Drewinski on the show from the Cryptid Warfare guys. I've got him lined up, I think, week after next, I think. And looking forward to that. And I've got some other people I may be making some deals with to come on. And you got Mr. Dacre Stoker coming on again very soon. That's right.
He'll be in November also, I believe. Yes.
He's going to be on my show next month, month after that, December. Yeah. So we're going to go a few rounds with him, right?
That's right. Yeah, the last show we had with him,
he just did a horror convention at a town near me. I didn't get a chance to go. I would love to go meet him. He posted some pictures from that, a horror convention. And I think he did Stoker on Stoker. You know, he has a program that he does Stoker on Stoker. And I would love to went to see him, but he had, I think, a great time. I seen some of the pictures from it. Big horror convention. It was in Columbia, South Carolina, which is probably roughly about 100 miles from me. But maybe next time I get a chance to go there. I have done horror conventions. I did one time, actually, and I swear I met Eddie Monster and Marilyn Monster. I met them, and that old Eddie Monster, he's a trip. The guy who played Eddie Monster, Butch Patrick, he is a trip, man. And I got to talk to one played Marilyn. You know, she played with Elvis in a movie, and I think she still loved Elvis. She was still a big fan of Elvis. And then I met the guy that actually played the creature from the Black Lagoon. He was interesting. He's the one that actually wore the underwater suit.
Wow!
And you know they're remaking that.
I like that movie.
I got to talk to him. He was a very interesting guy, and met one lady who was one of the stars on the Dark Shadows, the old Dark Shadows TV show. So it was very interesting. If any of you out there ever get a chance to go to horror convention, you will find it very intriguing. Absolutely. I was a guest. I was actually there with my group at that time, and we were doing a sort of tutorial for everybody coming through about how you do ghost hunting and cryptid hunting and stuff like that. So I was there on business. I was a guest. I was there to bring in some money, but I got in free. So there you go. That helped.
There you go.
Yeah. It was very fun. I got to browse while I was there, though. Absolutely. But if you ever get a chance to go, you would love it. I'm sure any of you out there would. But when you got somebody like Dacre Stoker there or something that you really want to meet, you know, that is a good way to do it. Absolutely. Well, switching subjects now, we'll get to the subject at hand. Books. You know, I've often said some of the best friends I ever had were books. They taught me a lot back when I was young. When I was a kid, I don't know about you, Joe, I was a big comic book fan. I read comic books all, but I know you did probably too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's how you get started reading, I guess. Get on the comics. You start out with the Sunday comics, and then you go from them to the regular comic books, and then to the classics, hopefully. And tonight we're going to talk about some classics, but these are the really offbeat kind of classics. Absolutely. These are some very strange books. Books of forbidden and hidden knowledge. And, one that comes to mind when I think about it, I've got a copy of it around here somewhere. The Egyptian Book of the Dead. Which is a fascinating book, by the way. I don't know if you had that on your list, but that is a fascinating book. It has a lot of supposedly spells. Now, that is the book they refer to in the old mummy movies. It brought Karis the mummy back to life.
Right.
They mentioned the Book of the Dead, the Egyptian Book of the Dead. But supposedly It is a book that's thousands of years old. Thousands of years old. That's a very old book. Because I was telling somebody the other day, I don't know if a lot of people know this or not. The very first novel supposedly ever written was Don Quixote de la Mancha. Don Quixote, the Man of La Mancha by Cervantes. As soon as Cervantes wrote it, they threw him in jail. Okay.
Ah,
They threw him in jail. It was the Spanish Inquisition. There you go. Okay.
oh my.
But, books have a long and varied history with mankind. And I was reading the other day about how the Cherokee Indians are the first tribe of American Indians that had a written language. That's very interesting. So, as long as there's been a written language, there have been books, and that goes back to ancient Egypt and beyond, probably for all we know. And one of the most famous library of books, you know what that is, Daryl? That is
I would say Alexandria.
the Library of Alexandria. And they have found a lot of scrolls in Pompeii. That was buried under the ashes of the volcano, and they're having a lot of them were burnt, very badly damaged. But now with AI, they're able to X-ray a lot of them and decipher what the sayings are in them. And they did one just the other day, and here's something interesting to think about. They actually now, because of this papyrus that they were able to decipher, they think they know where the grave of Plato is.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because it told it where he was buried in a garden, and they know where the garden was. So they may actually find now whether his bones are still there. It's been a long, long time ago. It's been well over 2,000 years ago. But it is interesting that even all these many centuries later, they're deciphering clues to stuff like that. It's fascinating stuff, all because of books. Now, the original books, papyrus, they were made out of reeds, and some papyrus are made out of animal skins. You had different types, and they were rolled up. Of course, that's how you stored them. They rolled out, and a lot of people don't realize this. Of course, especially like languages like the Hebrew language, you read it from right to left, not left to right, like we do. We read left to right. They read right to left, and that's the way they wrote it, actually, too. I mean, you wrote by hand. That's the way it went down. And so you got not only to try to decipher something like that, you got to do it backwards. That makes it even harder. It's kind of weird to think about. But books have played a very, very important part in our history. Absolutely. We would not be where we're at now if it weren't for books. And I think, as a writer myself, who's had several books put out, it is like a living thing to a certain extent. A book is like it is a living word, you might say, because it inspires, it teaches, it opens your mind and lets you see through other people's points of view on things. It gives you history. It teaches us so much, and that's why they are so very important to us in that respect. But there are some books, Gerald, out there that have some forbidden knowledge to them. There are some books that are the offbeat kind. They're not just your average school textbooks or anything like that. One of them comes to mind immediately, the Bible, one of the oldest books in existence. Well, how much we have learned from it and still are learning, even archaeological wise.
Right.
It's amazing. And so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Some very interesting books that are out there. And let me get our pictures up here. And since you know a lot about these, I'll let you start with this one right here. What are we looking at here?
That is a clay disc.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it's called the Phastos disc. Mm-hmm. And it was discovered in 1908, in a palace in Crete. And there's a couple different discs. And to this day, they don't know what those symbols are. They don't know what they mean or what it says, if it's a calendar, if it's, a phrase, words. They don't know what it is about that. And a lot of the things on my list tonight are undeciphered, or they're not really sure what the language was, or it's just a mystery.
Well, Gerald, looking at that, there are so many lost languages, that we don't know about. That's maybe one of those, since they're not familiar with it. That, stands to reason it could be a lost language, don't you think so?
Absolutely. I mean, if they didn't have a written language, then obviously they were using symbols, just like we see in the temples or the pyramids, and it took them a long time to decipher the hieroglyphics in the pyramids.
And they don't have no website on there anywhere either. So we can't look it up, in
That's
that
right. No
respect.
flip notes, no nothing.
Yep. That is fascinating. It's fascinating. And you have to wonder when you see something like that, what is on there? What is it talking about? Or could be something very mundane, like somebody's bill of sale for something, or something maybe a king bought, or it could be anything like that. It's very interesting. Could be a science thing. Science has been around for a long, long time. Different types of science, rudimentary type science, but still science nevertheless.
Yep. Yeah, we have no clue what it says or what it means, or I mean, it could be just an everyday phrase for them in the time, or it could be a scripture. It could be, like you said, a science, mathematics. It could be talking about fields or harvesting. We just don't know.
They discovered a papyrus not long ago. This makes me think about that actually was signed by Cleopatra. You've heard of the very famous Cleopatra. That actually had her signature on it, and it was just a bill of goods, but she had to sign off on it.
Wow.
And still, think about that. Thousands of years ago, people were still signing stuff off on things like that. I guess it was maybe some money that she owed or whatever the situation was, but they actually had her signature on it. She didn't write the whole thing, just signed it. That's
Right.
interesting. Yeah. Oh, okay. Moving right along, let's see what this next thing item is here. This just looks like a papyrus too, of some sort of.
Yeah, that's a manuscript, and I believe this is just a recreation of one. So I thought I'd add it just to add a.
Looks like it's got a maps, a little bit of something on there, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's maps in there. There's all kinds. It's like a manuscript, and it has weird drawings in it. And I think later on when we get to it, you'll probably bring one up that's actually in there in between the folds.
Sends the Hobbit says, is that a bag seal tag? No, I think that other thing, that was a pretty good sized disc, was it not, Gerald?
I'm not really sure how big that is. That's just a close up picture of it, but I don't think it's a seal.
Maybe the size of a dinner plate. What do you think?
Yeah. I don't think it's a seal because there's no hole for them to latch it to anything, and there's no royal seal on it.
Seals usually were on a ring and they could seal something, like a letter or whatever. Kings especially had a seal, a seal of state, as they used to call it. But now this thing here, this is fascinating to me. Now this was something I would like to do. You have to imagine that's somebody's notebook. It looks like. I mean, there's got to be some very fascinating stuff in there. I wonder if that's been deciphered that much.
No, that I think is part of one of the groups that I came up with that hasn't been deciphered, or nobody really knows what it is yet.
Fascinating. Now, next up is a little bit older type of a notebook, isn't it?
Yeah, that is actually manuscript.
Mm-hmm. That looks like that might be something from a church or something, you know. Can't tell.
Yeah, and that's the Ronic Codex. They found it in the 1800s in Hungary,
Mm-hmm.
and it was thought to be medieval, but I think now they're saying it's even older than that, and it's undecipherable. They don't know if it's like again a forgotten language or if it's in code, if it's something they need to be deciphered.
Yeah, it's interesting, especially with that drawing on there. You know, here's the funny thing, girl. Okay, let me say this, and as a writer, I found this out to be true. Okay, you can write what you want to all day long, but people pay more attention to the pictures. You ever notice that?
Right. Yeah,
You can write something, people come, oh, I liked your picture, you know. Well, think about all the other stuff. You know, they kind of just skipped over that to look at the picture. But you don't have a manuscript, so like that, you got to have the pictures, you know.
Right. But I mean, if you look at that picture, I mean, look at the whatever those are, people or whatever the costumes or outfits or whatever they're wearing. That's what's so weird when you get into medieval time or earlier. They start drawing all these depictions, and it's like they don't really look right to us.
That looks, I don't know, looks like to me that's a description of angels, maybe, or something. At somebody's grave or something, or some kind of monument or something. That's
well,
strange.
on the left, it looks like a sun, and then on the right, it looks like a moon. And then I don't know what the rose.
Oh, yeah, you got a sun and a moon depicting day and night there, probably. That's strange. It could be a mountain or a mound. It got something like some kind of monuments on it, or like a cross or something on it. I don't know. It's very. It just strikes me as ecclesiastical. You know. I don't know. That could be wrong.
To me, it almost looks like it's tracking a harvest season or something. Like maybe those are rows of crops, and maybe they're celestial.
Well, I say they were angels. The figures kind of look like angels because they got wings. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to know. It was in the mind of the artist if we can't tell what the text is saying.
It could be a book about fairies too.
Yeah,
it'd be that, dude. You never know. All right, let's see what we got next here. Oh, now this is interesting. Is this a papyrus to something rolled up, or what? What is it?
That is a wood plaque or a wood.
Oh, a plaque. Huh? Oh, well, yeah.
It's wood, and once again, they don't know what it's saying because obviously some of it's missing and burnt, and there's a bunch of different ones that they found.
Well, that would be another way to communicate, you know, your idea. Put it on wood too.
And this is attributed or whatever it's called, the Despilio tablet. And actually, it was found in 1993, so it wasn't that long ago that we just found it.
That is fascinating. I wonder what the size of that thing is. Got a lot of writing on it, that's for sure.
But they evidently they've dated it to 5,260 BC. At least that's what the carbon dating was saying for the wood.
Yeah, it looks very incredibly old. Absolutely. Let's see what we got coming up next year. We got another book. Okay. What are we looking at here? I'm getting my picture up. I got a little bit of a delay here on my other.
Okay.
This one was listed. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
This one was listed as the Ronic Codex.
Looks Greek to me.
Yeah.
I have a friend in Greece, and every now and then she'll forget to translate what she's writing to me. And I said, please translate, and then it looks Greek to me. Or tell you what this really looks like now. Now, no joking aside here, it looks kind of like a Slavic language, maybe Russian or something like that. It doesn't look Arabic.
Well, I think it was found in Hungary, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, that sounds more like it. Yeah, like the Slavic languages. You know, if you've seen you've seen Russian written and all that stuff. It much different. I can usually tell by looking at the alphabet whether what I'm really looking at, whether it's Hungarian, or Slavic or Arabic or Hebrew. There's a
Right.
difference in those languages, the way they're written. Of course, Chinese very easy to pick out, but there's like 1,000 Chinese dialects. You'd have to be an expert on that. But Chinese is easier to find. And actually, there's a big difference between the Chinese and Japanese language. Big difference, especially the way it's written. Fascinating. You know, that is an interesting study. If anybody ever wants to get into it, the different languages of the world, or the different writings, the alphabets, and all that. Fascinating stuff. What mankind has come up with just to be able to communicate an idea. You know.
Yep.
Then what we got next here? Now
I
this
think
looks
that
like
might be a fold out or a same version of one we've already looked at.
it looks
That's
kind
from
of
that's from the Vonovich manuscript.
it looks kind of scientific. Something like they're
And
trying to
it has a
describe.
bunch of weird,
But
undecipherable drawings and artistic images in it that they can't really tell what it's about, and they can't read the language evidently in this one either.
that's interesting. It looks kind of like flowers a little bit too, like some kind of flowers or gems or something like that. That's interesting.
If you ever get to the Yale University, this manuscript is in the college in their rare book section.
Oh yeah, it looks kind of rare to me. Definitely.
They're saying it's from the 15th century.
That's going on back. Oh, we got here. I think I recognize that guy.
Yeah. You want to take a guess? You know who it is?
It looks like John Dee to me.
It is. That is exactly right. And this is the book
A
of
very famous alchemist. And I'll tell you a little quick thing about John Dee before you tell everybody about him. John Dee was big into demonology and stuff, and he actually wanted the language of angels so that he could control angels or demons, the case may be, fallen angels. He wanted their language. The Enochian language is called the language of angels. John Dee was a fascinating guy. I advise everybody out there listening tonight, check him out and look him up. Go ahead and Gerald, tell everybody what this is here.
so this, like you said, John Dee was an alchemist, and this book supposedly is based on astrology, magic, numerology, like you said, trying to turn metal into gold. And this is a 16th century book, and it's evidently a code that you have to try to figure out. And so far, nobody has been able to figure it out except for one or two sections. A lady actually in 1994 was able to decipher a table inside of this manuscript, but unfortunately that table doesn't reference to any other part of the book, so they can't use it as a reference or a key.
Well, and John Dee had that in common with Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci had his own code too, by the way. And I'll tell you why they did that. The one reason why, there may have been several different reasons, but the one reason they did that, and even Ben Franklin did that. He had his own code too, by the way. Smart men knew that they needed to safeguard a lot of their ideas, and that's how they did it. They wrote it or put it out in their own code that nobody else could, usually brag. They weren't that big on ciphers back in the day, you know.
Right.
But some of these codes still stand good today, all these many years later. Some of them have not been, deciphered.
Back then, knowledge was their only way of providing for themselves and to keep themselves useful to whether it was the church or the army or military at the time. So they kept their projects secret by putting them in codes, and only they could decipher them, because if everybody started getting the knowledge or whatever, then they were pretty much useless and they didn't need them anymore.
Yeah, fascinating. John Dee was a fascinating guy, though. He was fascinating. He was into everything occultic. Like you say, astrology, astronomy too, for that matter. He was into alchemy. He was into languages, spells, demonology, all that stuff. John Dee was big into it. And like I say, if you want to go down a lot of rabbit holes, look up John Dee sometime. You'll be glad you did. Absolutely. What we got next here? Let's see.
That is just another image that I sent to you, just in case you wanted to use as a thumbnail. That's kind of somebody's made up image of a mysterious book with symbols on it.
The Book of Forbidden Knowledge.
Yeah.
I have several of those in my library, by the way. The Malus Maleficarium, the Hammer of Witches. The list goes on and on. And like I've told people before, I have one of the most evil books ever written in my library, and that is the Communist Manifesto. Millions have died because of this book. That is the power of the written language, my friend. That is the power of books. Millions of people have died because of the Communist Manifesto, and many more may die too because of it. That's just how insidious that book is. What we got here is an illustration of a rabbit attacking someone here, girl. What is that?
Now this is similar to like when I was on Jessica the Cryptid Hunter show, and we did maps, from medieval times, whatever, where they depict, cryptids or animals and stuff. And this is actually a Smithfield, what do they call it?
That's a
decrentials.
that's a puka, actually. And I'll tell you why that's a puka. You might notice in the illustration he's wearing a belt, very much like the werewolf belt to turn somebody into a werewolf. Some people could also change the forms into rabbits or a dog or whatever by use of a witchcraft belt. It's a shapeshifter belt, by the way. And I think that's interesting that he's wearing one in this. But that's more or less like a puka, which is a fairy or a face spirit. And it's a shapeshifter too. It can take on different shapes. And this is actually illustrating, showing it cutting somebody's head off. So
Yeah,
it
because
seems like it
they
went
can either be
sideways real quick
friendly or
for some reason.
mischievous, and obviously this one's mischievous. And pukas are supposedly 7 feet tall and can be invisible, so they would
Yeah.
be
Well, they
uh
can. You can see them, but you have to do certain things to be able to see them. When they're invisible, some people. That's like where this. And I've talked about this before. Let me bring this up a minute. That's where your let me get that off screen just a second. This is where your hagstone comes in. See the hagstone right here? I got
yeah.
hagstone. You're supposed to be able to look through these holes and see stuff like the puka. You can see into the fey realm, so to speak. That's where that comes in at. But I've talked about that before, but that's a subject for another time. But anyway, that's what's in this drawing here. And I think we got another drawing. It's also showing him what shooting a bow and arrow or something.
Yep.
So
So that's in the same
here's the
manuscript.
interesting thing: the hunted has become the hunter, and that's interesting.
So this manuscript is supposedly has a bunch of papal letters in it, and it talks about what's going on politically and religiously in the church and out around the area. And so these could be kind of like what we would call a political cartoon for us in this time. I don't know, but it's really is showing though a puka, and I don't know what the symbol necessarily is.
Since the Hobbit says you'd think anyone that sees a 7-foot bunny wielding a sword would do better in life and put the whiskey bottle down. That happened in Ireland a lot. There, Since the Hobbit, yes, sir. Oh yeah, the monks were really mischievous. Yes, they were. Well, you gotta look at the monks in this way, okay? The only fun they have was doing stuff like this, So that's the way it went in the monastery. Okay, here's another one here. This is a unicorn, if I'm not mistaken, and a bear. Is that right?
So there's like 600 pages to this manuscript, and it's every bit of it has these drawings or etchings on it in the top, the bottom, and the middle. I mean, just all over the place. And I'd really like to know the story behind it, what these bears and this unicorn, what they represent, or are they, I mean, was it really a unicorn at the time of this being done, or was it something that they were just depicting as a symbol for something?
Or it may be some kind of a fable, maybe telling a story. It's kind of like a fairy tale thing, Could be doing that too. A lot of stories were written down, like, about King Arthur and on the Knights of the Round Table and all that stuff. That goes way back to medieval times too, And this could be something along those same lines. That's fascinating to look at, that. Absolutely. Now, what we got next here, Gerald? This is another block of wood or something, isn't it?
It's another wood tablet, and that one's the Rongo Rongo. And there's actually 26 wooden tablets that they found with this language on it. And this is another one that's undecipherable. They don't know what it is, but it did come from Easter Island. They found it in 1864.
Oh, yeah, that is interesting. Now, Easter Island is where you've got the Moa heads, That's a fascinating culture on an island, especially. You don't usually see that kind of culture going on in an island complex thing because they're usually cut off, from other cultures and stuff. It's fascinating to look at. Easter Island has a lot of mysteries to it.
Right.
Absolutely. John Thornton says the unicorn is Scotland's national animal. Yeah, I know. That's interesting. That might relate back to something with that as well. I don't think the puka's anybody's symbol, but I don't know.
You never know.
Jimmy Stewart may.
Yeah, I like that rendition Jimmy Stewart movie with Harvey. Yeah, the puka.
That is the number one best movie Jimmy Stewart ever made in my book. Okay, he made a lot of great movies, but that's number one in my book. If you can go around with a 6-foot white rabbit,
that's right. And if you can talk to him and understand him, and nobody else can see him or hear him, then man, that's something.
Now here we have a very well-known, the Giga Codex. Well-known, also called what, Gerald?
The Devil's Bible.
Yep, the Devil's Bible. This is a big, big book. It's about 3 feet long and about 2.5 feet wide. Now it's open there. Of course, that makes it bigger when it's open. But that's just, you don't haul that around in your backpack, okay? That just ain't gonna work. That is a big book. I've often wondered, and you see something like this back in medieval times, especially. They came up with these humongous swords and shields and books. Why? Where is that coming from? I mean, are giants hanging around reading this kind of stuff, or what? That's
I mean,
interesting.
some of the books to me look like it would be the size a giant would actually read.
Yeah,
So I don't know.
you would find that on a giant's coffee table for sure.
But I mean, the book's 165 pounds and is 3 foot tall.
Don Fortman said that's some heavy reading. Crystal said that'd be a little too heavy for sure. Yeah. Well, I tell you what. Yeah, I don't know. I would love to read it, but it'd be hard to handle. That's what I said. You'd have to get down on top of that one to read it. But if you could read it, a lot of it is in code as well. Is that not true, Gerald?
Yes. I mean, they think they know sections of it, or at least going by the pictures trying to depict, what it's trying to say. So they're trying to, but this picture happens to be during the preservation process. So that's kind of why I picked it.
There's a shot on turn the page. And the reason it's called the Devil's Bible, though, is because there is a depiction of Satan in it, a picture of him. It doesn't mean it's actually his Bible. Of course, they just called it that. I'll tell you, I'm going to talk about the real Satanic Bible in a moment. But that's got a lot of interesting illustration. And just to go through it and see the pictures is interesting in itself, whatever it may be written in it. It's fascinating book.
I think one of the other pictures I have shows the picture that you were talking about of the depiction of the devil. Yes, that
there
one.
it is right there. Yeah. That's it. He is a very evil looking devil in that book. Absolutely. He's the one with the horns. If you'll notice, he's got the horns in there. Okay. That's where I believe a lot of depictions of the devil come from this book. Because it looks a lot like, the depictions of the horns and all that, reptilian looking devil, that we know that we've seen in pop culture so much. I believe that's the inspiration for a lot of it right there.
And I believe this has the Guinness World Record for the largest book or largest manuscript on record.
Yep, it is a doozy. And I think has been put online that you can see it. If you may never get a chance to go there to actually see it. They wouldn't let you probably, what you're looking at are historians. And
yeah, you'd have to be a scholar and
they're not going to let you read it.
Credentials.
Yeah. But it has been, I think, put on. I heard one time, not long ago, that it had been put on the internet. I think it may be on that very famous site. What's the name of it? The one that has so many books. The Gutenberg Project.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it is online. I think I saw a reference to it, but I just wanted the picture so we could show it.
It may be, because I think I remember seeing it. There's another shot of the guy looking. This, of course, an older picture of it. But look how thick that book is. My gosh, it would take 2 or 3 men to pick that thing up and set it out on the table.
These are actually a library collection of
all of the large
medieval books that they've found.
That's what I'm saying. Why are they so darn big? That's crazy, isn't it? I mean, look how big they are. Look at the spines on those books. My gosh, they're like 3 or 4 foot long.
I mean, how would you ever lift that or carry it or transport it or be able to put it? I mean, other than him, he's got it on the floor flipping through the pages. How would you be able to do that on a regular basis?
That's interesting. Very interesting. I'll tell you what, to me, there are so many. Now, I'm going to talk about this book here. This is not the real book here, folks, by the way. This is a facsimile of it. But this is a very well-known book. that's called, if you notice, it has a human face on it. It's the Necromonicon. Okay, this is not a rendering of it. It's not the real thing. There is no real Necromonicon. I'm gonna talk about that in a minute. But it's supposed to be a book that is bound in human skin. It's got a human face on the front of it, and the back is a human ear on the back of it. The back face does, and of course the bookmark is a human tongue in it. And it's supposed to be the most evil book ever written, the Necromonicon. But it is the most famous book that was never written. Okay. And the reason I say that is because it does not exist, supposedly in that form. There are other myths that books like it may exist, but not the actual Necromonicon. Necromonicon is just another fancy way of saying Book of the Dead. Okay. And it gets that kind of name from the Egyptian Book of the Dead. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But H.P. Lovecraft invented the Necromonicon as a writing tool. He could refer back to this book in certain instances. And this book is supposedly the one that opens the gateway, the interdimensional gateway for the old gods to return and reclaim the earth and the whole universe. That's why it was such a dangerous book. You didn't read out loud from this book. It was a big no. But H.P. Lovecraft said this. He said he felt kind of bad every once in a while when he heard that somebody actually went to a library looking for this book because he made it up. Okay. And it's not a real, but it's one of the most famous books that does not exist. Okay. Put it that way. That's the Necromonicon. And you see it talked about in a lot of movies. It's even referred to in the Army, what was the name of that? Army of Darkness or something that Bruce Campbell did, the Army of Darkness, which was, I think, the ripoff of Army of the Dead or something like that he did before that with a cabin in the woods. But anyway, and here's the interesting thing about that in that movie. The only way you could open the Necromonicon was to say some special words, and they were these. Cleto Barada Nictu. Okay. And that comes from another movie. That saying comes from The Day the Earth Stood Still. Okay. I know Gerald knows what I'm talking about here.
Yep. I think they reference it in the movie The Mummy too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's referred to in that as well. They did that one, and now the Egyptian Book of the Dead does exist. I have a copy of it in here somewhere. Okay. It is, but it's kind of completely unreadable in that respect. It's not a book you're gonna cozy up to on a dark, stormy night and read. Okay, but the Egyptian Book of the Dead has supposedly a lot of spells that have to do with their gods and deities and all that. But it also has some other interesting everything. But it is connected to the Mummy movie because that's just the book. Words from that book supposedly bring the mummy back to life. You raise the dead with it, which is your sort of regular kind of a grimoire. Now, a lot of people don't know what grimoires are, but grimoires are actually demonology. We're talking about the old demonology here, the demonology that you use to raise demons. You bring demons forward with these kind of books. The most famous one is the Lesser Key of Solomon. And of course, I don't think Solomon actually really had anything to do with it, but he got named for it, okay, or blamed for it, whatever the case is. But you have a lot of grimoires, and they are dark and evil, dangerous books to really fool around with. I don't suggest you play around with them. And like I was telling Gerald earlier before we did the show, I've had a lot of people over the years ask me, how do you do this ritual? How do you do that? And I don't tell you, I'm not going to go into detail and tell you because you might try to do it, okay? And you don't need that information. And let me say this, there are certain books out there that have certain information that maybe you don't need to mess around with, okay? That's my thought on that. What do you think, girl?
Absolutely. I mean, I know everybody likes these rituals and sayings because of Harry Potter and all this stuff, but you got to be careful on what you listen. I mean, just watching some of these movies, what if they actually hit on a phrase or a term that actually means something? You're taking that in, you're listening to it, or if you repeat it, because you're watching the movie, you memorize it and all that stuff, and you're a fan of the movies. You got to be careful what you're saying, and it could be made up, but you never know.
Well, it's kind of like this, Gerald. You have to be careful what you say because you got to own your words sometimes, and that depends on what you're reading or reciting. I have actually seen old movies. I'm talking about old horror movies, but they would actually ask people in the audience to get up and recite something very ritualistic. It's not a good idea to participate in
Right.
anything like that, whatever it may be, and that includes books. If you find a book that tells you to read something out loud for a certain reason, it might be a good idea not to do that because they're telling you to do that for a reason, and it may not be a good reason.
Right.
It could be something very detrimental, especially when it comes to the Book of Shadows. Now, the original Book of Shadows is the real Devil's Bible, supposedly written by Satan himself. The real Book of Shadows. Now, I'm not talking about the one you find at Barnes and Noble. Okay, I've looked through it. I know what to. But now I'm talking about the real Book of Shadows. It's supposed to exist in this world somewhere, and it is supposed to be one of the books used by the Church of Satan. And whether that's the original one or not, I'm not going to say that. I'm not a book expert. I don't know. But you might remember a movie with Johnny Depp
The
called The
Ninth
Ninth.
Gate.
You remember that, Gerald?
The Ninth Gate. I like that movie.
Yeah, and there was a book in that movie. There were 3 of them actually that existed in the world that would open the gates of hell, and so will supposedly the Book of Shadows. That's where they got the idea for that at, by the way. Okay, that's where they got the idea for that movie. The Book of Shadows supposedly is the key that opens the gates of hell. You definitely do not want to borrow that book from the Bible, from the library or anything. Okay.
One of my favorite parts of that movie is when Johnny Depp's character finally realizes that each of those copies of those books are different and they depict different parts or chapters in that scene.
Yeah.
They kind of come to life a little bit and show something different that the other book didn't show.
And some of the illustrations were signed LCF. Remember what that stood for? Lucifer.
Yeah.
Some of those illustrations were put in there by Lucifer. It was a key to open the gates. And it come to find out in the movie, I hope I'm not killing this for everybody, but the angel is supposed to be in the movie turns out not to be an angel, but I'm not going to say any more about that. Okay. But anyway.
Yeah, go watch it. It's a great movie.
A great movie. If you've never seen it, you need to watch it. It's pretty good. The Ninth Gate. And there are supposedly, of course, there are 7 princes of hell and 9 gates to hell, supposedly. Why the different numbers? There are different demonic numbers and different angel numbers, whatever you want to talk about and that. But anyway, there are supposedly 9 hell gates, and they're supposed to be scattered all over the world, different areas of the world that you can go to. And if you say the right words, do the right ritual, you will open the gates. Why would you want to? I don't know. but and I have to wonder, though, if, and we've talked about this before, because it's a subject for another time, if they haven't opened one of those gates with something called CERN.
Right.
Yeah. Makes you wonder.
They're getting ready to start CERN up. If they haven't done it already, they're going to do another experiment. And so who knows what's going to happen at this time coming up. I think it's the 17th and 18th. They're going to do an experiment with CERN.
Yeah, I heard something about that. Yeah. Supposed to ratchet up again. I don't know.
So a lot of weird stuff people say happens all the time every time they start up CERN. So we'll have to keep an eye out on.
It's very much like the old horror movies. They're playing God and playing around with stuff they don't really need to do, but they're going to do it anyway. And when they do stuff like that, you can never expect a good outcome.
Right.
Okay.
Or
But
me,
back to the book. Back to
it
the book.
reminds me of the movies, like Frankenstein, when he's getting ready to turn on all the machinery and the lightning starts coming down on the castle. And
You just, what that was the whole moral of Frankenstein. Man should not play God. That was the whole moral. That's why she named it Frankenstein, the modern Prometheus. Because he was the modern, he gave man bad stuff. Prometheus is the one that gave mankind fire. He paid for it too. He got chained to a rock and had his liver cut out every day by a big giant bird. Okay. He gave us knowledge, supposedly. He's sort of the stand-in for Lucifer in that respect. But anyway, when you play God, you got to expect some bad consequences. That's just the way that used to go. That's what Mary was trying to tell us with that story. But and that's why I got banned too, by the way, for a long time. Got banned in a lot of countries. But the interesting thing is, getting back to the books, there is one that I'm going to talk about now that comes from another movie. Do you remember the Book of Presidents?
Yes.
That's a fascinating thing. What if there is a book of presidents really in existence, Cheryl? You ever think about that?
I think about it all the time. I've even watched podcasts on it, questioning that and what would be in it. Just like in National Treasure, the president tells them to turn to page so-and-so or whatever and read about John F. Kennedy. It's like, oh, man. Could you imagine?
And, one chapter would be about Area 51, bro.
Yeah. Yeah, could you imagine what would be in that? A book of secrets for presidents?
Yeah, that's interesting. If there really was a book of presidents, we'd never get to see it, though, I'm sure. But the whole premise of National Treasure, especially National Treasure 2, actually, was them finding, all that the secret room in the Grand Canyon with all those scrolls from the library in Alexandria was there. That was the biggest part of the treasure to me. That's what I want. The heck with the gold, you're going to spend that, but hey, I want to see what's in those papyruses. Definitely, because that was supposed to be the suppository of every known knowledge of the world.
Right.
Think what was in that library, Charles, that we would love to know about. Telling how they built the pyramids of Egypt, or talking about coming to America 5,000 years ago or something. I mean, just think what might have been in those papyruses that were supposedly burnt. It makes me sick when I think about it. The hidden and lost knowledge that could have been there. Here's another place that we're not allowed into. And what is that, girl?
The Vatican Library.
Yeah. The Vatican's holding on to a lot of stuff in there, in that basement. Absolutely, that we would love to know. But here's the reason why they won't release that. And I've talked about this on other shows many times. I think the number one reason why is there are things in there that make the church look bad. And they're not going to release it. And one of them I can tell you right off. I forget what pope it was, but he's the one that referred to Adolf Hitler as a nice gentleman. So, I mean, come on, there's probably something a whole lot worse than that in there. Okay.
How many times have you seen in the news where they interview the neighbor of somebody that was a serial killer? Goes, well, he just kept to himself and he was quiet and seemed really nice. And
yeah. So I never would have thought he'd do that.
Everybody's nice until they do what they do.
We may be saying that about Gerald one day. I never would have thought he'd done.
Yeah, look how nice I am and kind and.
That's bad enough about it. But and I've said this before, and I'll say it again, probably more than once. Okay. But they're not going to share their secrets with us, because then they would share their power, and they're not going to do that. They're not going to share their power. My grandmother used to tell me something many years ago, Gerald. Said, don't tell everything you know, because then they'll know everything you know and everything they know too. So, in other words, knowledge is power, and you don't share power. A lot of people don't believe in that, you know.
Right.
Now, shows you're doing, me and you're doing like this right now. We're sharing knowledge. We're freely sharing knowledge. A lot of people don't look at it that way. A lot of people say, "Oh, I wouldn't do that." I'm not going to tell you everything I know. I'm going to tell you this, I don't tell you everything I know because I forgot a lot of it. Okay. There you go. Okay.
There you go. Some of the books that I would like to discover or find, and I don't know if they even exist or whatever, but a lot of the books that the Bible mentions inside the text, then even the Apocrypha, you start looking in the books of the Apocrypha, there's a lot of them that, people don't know exist. And they say they found some new ones. And then if you read in those books, they mention books that we don't really know if they exist or don't exist.
Oh, yeah. And, it is well known fact a lot of famous people kept diaries that we don't have. Those diaries are lost, like Ben Franklin or Leonardo da Vinci, to name a couple of them. Tesla, he had a diary. We don't even know where it's at. Okay.
You imagine?
You got books like that out there too. They may be in somebody's yard sale one day. You never know.
Right.
I mean, it may end up at a thrift store somewhere.
Could you imagine really coming across the true book of Solomon, the real writings or thoughts of Solomon?
That'd be interesting. I would like to find the real key of Solomon. Now, the reason they call this the key of Solomon, he was supposed to have written a book on his knowledge. He was supposed to be a very brilliant, smart man, okay, because God supposedly gave him wisdom. And he supposedly wrote a book. He wrote it all down in books. Now, that's the real key of Solomon. Now, that's why I was talking about that Grimoire early. It is, Grimoire, by the way, means grim book. Okay. It's a grim kind of thing. He supposedly had a real book written of his knowledge. The Grimoire is called the Lesser Key of Solomon. And then there's one supposedly that's supposed to exist as the Greater Key of Solomon, but they're concerned with demonology. Okay. I'm talking about the real key of Solomon. Right. Would have been his wisdom put down in a book. Maybe his thoughts or whatever, like a real diary. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That would be something to find. Absolutely.
Yeah, it would be amazing. I mean, a lot of the figures that are listed in the Bible and the Apocrypha, I mean, I can't imagine.
Yeah, Poncho. He's talking about that he'd rock the full body pantyhose that keeps him good. Be careful out there because there is a new tick-borne disease that attacks the brain. And knowing a lot of people out there, they don't need their brains attacked, okay? But there's definitely watch out for ticks, okay? Because you don't need to get up close with the ticks. This is a new kind of a tick virus that actually truly causes brain damage. That's not good.
Right.
As a Sweet Pea said, my hairdresser had Lyme's disease. Oh yeah, that will kill you too. I know a man that killed actually. A man I used to know is what got him. Mm-hmm. Shut your body down real quick. Not stuff to play with. So be careful out there with the ticks. Okay, especially this time. Ticks kind of know when it's getting towards winter. They get more active. Bugs do that. They're smart. They're not stupid. They know what they're doing. But anyway, it's very interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of books out there that we would love to find that would tell us a lot of things, stuff we need to know that are hidden from us right now. Do you know even the Ark of the Covenant supposedly held what, Gerald? 2 tablets.
That's
very
right.
important tablets. Remember that?
Yep. 10 Commandments written by God, the hand of God.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That might be called one of the first original books, you might say. It was definitely a record. Actually, the original ones got smashed by Moses, but they're supposed to be in the ark. You know, the pieces of it. But that would be something to find too. So if you ever found the ark, you know, you'd have a shot at finding that as well.
And other artifacts.
Oh yeah, of course. There's a lot of interesting artifacts still out there. I would like to find a fountain of youth. How about you?
I am the fountain of youth.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, you are the fountain of youth. Don't tell anybody that. They'll come after your blood, Gerald. You remember that movie? You remember that old TV show, The Immortal? Remember that?
Yep.
He had
Yeah,
special
I
blood
reference that
nobody
all
else
the time.
had, and they were trying to track him down to get his blood. That was a great TV series, by the way.
He was always looking for his sister, and they wanted to know where she was at.
Yep. That would be bad. You'd be talking about having a target on you, buddy.
No matter where he went, that billionaire was always having somebody look for him.
Yep. They want immortality, Gerald. They'll stop at nothing to get it.
Not unlike what happens these days.
There may be some hidden information in a forbidden book out there somewhere that might get you immortality. What if you could find Saint Germain's diary or alchemy book? Think about that.
Oh my. I honestly don't think I'd want to live forever.
Yeah, it might get boring after a while, depending on what state of existence you were living in. You know what I'm saying? If you were living in a better spiritual state, you might could put up with immortality because you were looking at things along a different spiritual vibrational level. But being human and living like that might be more of a curse than a blessing. Like the Wandering Jew that we talked about, you know, in that
Right. Yeah.
That'd be more in many ways because then you feel heat and cold and hunger and pain and sorrow and loneliness that never ends. It has no end to it. That's a curse, whichever way you look at it. Yeah, the old guard was honey for that. Absolutely nothing at all they won't do for it. Absolutely not. They are seeking immortality in all the worst ways and places. Because they've got so much power, money. They want to live forever to you enjoy it, you know. And I kind of understand where they're coming from on that. As Humphrey Bogart said in Casablanca, I can understand I know the point of view of the hound, but I can understand the point of view of the fox too. Okay, so that's just the way that goes. I can kind of understand where they're coming from. If you had all the power and money in the world, you'd want to live long enough to enjoy it too. You know, I guess. But like I say, here's the thing about it. People like that, and I'll just say this, and we'll move on. But they're looking at things wrong. They're looking at things they think are important, but they're not. They think these things are taking the most important spot in their lives, like power and money and prestige and fame. That's not going to make you happy. I don't care which way and I've said this before, Joe. I got a lot of people, young people, say, "Oh, if I had him or her, I'd be so happy." No, him or her, it's not going to make you happy. Nobody in this world was ever put here to make you happy. Nobody was put here to make you happy. You have to be the one that makes you happy. That's the way you got to look at stuff, Yeah. And when you pass the buck and you don't do it the right way, you always run into trouble, no matter what, Like we were talking about Frankenstein earlier. When you play God, you're going to, as Robert Louis Stevenson said, my favorite quote, one day everyone will sit down to a banquet of consequences. And you want the best consequences you can get if that happens, okay?
That's right.
It's like you want the best steak dinner. You want the best banquet of consequences you can sit down and do. And that's the way you need to live your life, you know? John Fortman says immortality is what you make of it. If you're bored, desultory, and not seeking to improve in one small lifetime, what eternity would be a curse. Yep. If they want to George, well, yeah, but they want to avoid judgment, definitely. That's the number one way they. If you could be immortal, you could already start kind of avoiding that judgment coming anyway. You know, yeah, definitely.
That
If you are an
reminds me of
eternal student in this interest, who can entertain yourself is the greatest of all blessings. I'm sorry, what, sir?
that reminds me of one of my favorite Twilight Zone episodes where the guy loves reading books and he was always nagged by his wife about reading books. His boss always got on to him about reading books. Then he was in the vault taking his lunch break reading a book when a nuclear bomb or whatever went off, and everybody was gone except for him. And he had all the time in the world to read his favorite books, had them all lined up, and then he breaks his glasses.
Time enough at last. Yeah, he broke his glasses. That's the way it goes when you plan something. That's what it says at the end. The plans of mice and men often go astray, do they not? That's the way it goes. Absolutely. I would love to have met Rod Serling, actually. I would love to have met him. And him and some other writers I can think of. I actually talked to his wife one time, Carol Serling. It was interesting. I didn't talk to her long, but she was very nice. But I would love to have met the man, definitely. That would have been interesting. And I think his daughter is sort of now carrying on his legacy. You know, Richard Matheson's daughter. I'm friends with her on Facebook. I spoke to her. Richard Matheson is a legend. Matter of fact, he is the one that wrote "I Am Legend." Remember that?
Yeah.
That's a great book. And of course, Ray Bradbury. I knew his aunt, by the way. I knew his aunt, and I've actually got Ray Bradbury's great grandfather's combat knife.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she actually gave it to me. This was many, many years ago when I was a kid. I didn't know who Ray Bradbury was then. That's the weird part. Turned out I lived back in the back. I was the backdoor neighbor. You know what a backdoor neighbor is?
Oh, yeah.
I was the backdoor neighbor of his aunt. Never knew it until, she was gone all that years later. And actually, I ran into her grandson. And he said, "Oh, by the way, I'm kin to Ray Bradbury." I never knew that. I knew her name was Miss Bradbury, but I never made the connection,
Right.
It was weird. You talking about weird stuff in life, strange. But anyway, this has been a fascinating hour or so here.
Yeah.
On books.
Went by fast.
What's your closing comments on that, Gerald? What's your wrap up your? What do you think about books like this? The forbidden knowledge type books, the rare books. What's your take on that?
It's just amazing to me that we have languages that have disappeared, that people no longer know what they say or mean or can decipher them, read them. And all these books keep popping up. We're still finding manuscripts and things we thought were lost or didn't know what they were. And it's just amazing, all the knowledge out there. If you look around, try to find it. You never know. I mean, one copy of this book they thought was lost forever, and there it was in a library that they didn't even bother looking in because they thought, oh, well, this is not going to be in this library, and there it was. And that somebody finally went in and looked in a big library, and they actually had a copy of it.
That's very true. I was thinking about the Dead Sea Scrolls. How very important that find. What else is out there that we haven't found? What's waiting for us? Like those scrolls of Herculaneum and Pompeii that they're trying to describe. Well, what might possibly be in some of those that we want to know? That's the fascinating thing about it, especially when it comes to archaeology and old books and stuff like that. The knowledge that they contain. The more knowledge we can gain as humanity, the lost knowledge is kind of like the Lord of the Rings. Remember how it begins? There were some things that were lost that should not have been lost, and we've lost a lot of stuff, Gerald, over time,
Right.
a whole lot of stuff. And it would be good if we could just find some of it again, I think. And
Right.
it would give us a much better perspective on how things were and what they might be in the future, for all we know. That's what books are so good about. I think it was, I can't remember now who it was. I think it was Edison, or it might have been Bell. I can't remember which one it was. I get just too mixed up all the time. But he said something very interesting. If I have seen further than most, it is because I have stood on the shoulders of giants. And, that's what books are. They're the shoulders of giants that we can stand upon and see further over into that undiscovered country that Shakespeare talked about, we can see further forward and backwards. It's always good to see where you're coming from because it tells you where you might be going.
Right.
And that's what books are for.
Yeah, you never know. Somebody, whether it's Edison, Ford, Tesla, whoever writes down their experiments or thoughts, whatever's going on, and then somebody later on will read that and it'll inspire them and they'll take it to the next level or the next step.
Oh yeah, it's just like Tesla. The government confiscated his notes, his notebooks, everything. What happened to that? Where's it at? And is it being hidden from us? Because Tesla, who was a very large genius, okay, he was, talking about transferring electricity without wires. He was the first one that talked about wireless technology. I know Hedy Lamarr helped bring that about, though. By the way, that's an interesting story about how
that is a great story.
On that, yeah, Hedy Lamarr, the actress. But who would think? Who would have thunk that, girl? But anyway, you have to wonder what's being hid. And like we've heard so many stories about carburetors that have been made that could take on 200 miles a gallon. What happened to that? Where did they disappear to and why? I think I got some good ideas. But anyway, a lot of the stuff's been hid from us. I don't like that, and like I've said this before, I think I said this on my last show. Okay. One thing I don't, you can step on my blue suede shoes. Okay. And I might let you get by with it. But when you insult my intelligence, you really cross the line. Okay. And these people are insulting our intelligence by hiding and lying to us. Okay, that's one thing I can't stand: lies. Some people that lie to your face and smile about it. You know what I mean?
Right.
I can't stand that. That sticks in the craw right there. I can't swallow it. I just don't like it. But that's what they're doing to us. We wouldn't have put up with it. We don't need to put up with it. EMF free technology. Yep. Chicky Blue says H.P. Morgan kill free energy. Yeah, I don't doubt it. Rich men do that. If it don't profit them, they're not going to let you have it. That's the way it works. J.P. Morgan. Yeah. But anyway, it's interesting to think about. Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what. You want to tell everybody what you got coming up again next week here?
Yeah, Wednesday night we'll be doing the Night Owl Lounge at 10 p.m. Central. That's where we just hang out and talk with everybody and chat. We might bring up the cameras outside, which we have going 24/7 on our YouTube channel. But when we do it on the Night Owl Lounge, we might zoom in on a constellation and see what's going on up there. If anything's moving, or it might be backyard animals show up, or you just never know. And then Saturday night, we have Geezer Geeks. And you can find us on Geezer Geeks on YouTube and Robert Bauer's channel. What are you going to say, Dennis?
That sounds great there, man. Sure does, yeah. Of course, I will have Hunting the Shadows Wednesday night, 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Friday night, Paranormal Point of View. May drop another episode of Midnight Road on you next weekend. You never know. And I will definitely probably do this weekend coming up or sometime around then another episode of Scary Stories by Candlelight. This is going to be a science fiction one coming up, okay?
Yep.
Science fiction tale of terror, okay? So that's coming up on that. I also want to make a little announcement to everyone tonight. YouTube, the powers that be, have seen fit to pause my memberships. Okay, you will probably get a email telling you your membership has been paused. They have stopped monetizing my channel. You can't give me stickers anymore or anything. Why they decide to do that, I don't know. They don't tell you a whole lot. They just say, we're not going to do it. We're not really gonna. So I'm going to have to try to make a video. If you see a weird video that I make coming up soon, you'll know why. Okay, because I got to make a video telling them why I think appealing their decision, why I think they need to repeal it. And I'm going to have to make a video on it. And hopefully, I don't know if it will work or not, but I'm going to try it. So until further notice, I am stuck and they won't let me monetize anything. Okay. So I don't think you can still give me, I don't think you can give me any stickers. It does not show on your thing. I don't think. Gerald said it didn't show on his. So it's probably not showing on your thing on my channel where you can send a sticker. So I'm stuck. Okay. So I don't know. What bugs me is YouTube can throw all these commercials in. They won't make tons of money, but they don't want us to make any money. So I don't know what the problem is with that. But they're gonna hear from me. All right. But anyway, I'll be doing that, trying to straighten that junk out. Well, if it can be straightened out, I don't know. But they're not going to stop me, okay? They may think they are, but they're not. And also, if you want to make a donation to Hunting the Shadows, you can do it through PayPal. You can send it to dwccwd@hotmail.com. Let me repeat that again. That's dwccwd@hotmail.com. PayPal, okay? You can send donations to that. They can't stop that, okay? So that's the only avenue we got right now. And I'm not trying to get rich off of any of this stuff. Gerald knows that. Just trying to, help defray some of the costs. That's all. But it's bad that they want to let the little guy do his stuff, but that's the way it goes in this world.
And
but like they're not going to stop me. They're going to have to shoot me to stop me, okay? Kind of like somebody else.
We do these channels because we enjoy them, but yet at the same time, it does cost money to have the streaming service and the internet and the equipment. And so any little help that you can give Dennis or your favorite podcaster really helps out. Like Dennis says, you're not going to get rich off of doing this stuff, but any little money helps towards the monthly expenses of bringing this show to you. And we love doing it.
Yeah. And, it helps promote the family. And like I said before, my podcast, Gerald feels the same way. My podcasts are not just my podcasts, they're yours too. Okay, that's the way we look at it. That's the way we run things, okay? And it's your voice too that's at stake here. And just like you said, there are costs. It costs me well over $100 a month to do all this, okay? That's the bottom line, okay? It comes out of my pocket. And I'll be frank with you, it does. And I am on a very small, I'm not JP Caddy, okay? I'm only very small. So I'll tell you this, I don't mind telling you, I'm on a very small Social Security check. That's what I live for month to month. Okay. I have no savings. I have no income of any kind. Okay. In that respect. So I am on a very, very, very tight budget. Okay. After you spend medicine, buy groceries, and all that stuff, you ain't got a whole lot left to live on. That's just the way it goes in this economy today. You know what I'm
Right.
talking about out there. So that's the way it goes. And I'm not on here. I'm not going to be Jim. I'm not going to be Jim Baker, and I'm going to start crying for money. Okay. Oh, Tammy's the one who used to do that. Okay, I forgot. Well, anyway, I'm not going to start crying for the money, but I'm just saying it does. You know, and Gerald knows. Any podcaster knows what I'm talking about here. You know, and that's the way it goes. But we appreciate any kind of support you want to give us. And just being here is support too. Okay. That's the
That's
main
right.
thing. Absolutely.
Hit that notification bell, leave a comment after the show. That helps the algorithms and that helps Dennis's channel and my channel out. And I mean, that's help in itself.
The most valuable thing that you own does not sit in a bank vault. It is your time, my friends. That's the most valuable thing that you have right now. And from the moment we are born, we start squandering that time. Okay. And for you to give us your time says about how much you love us or care for us, and definitely how much you support us. And we appreciate that so very, very, very much. Absolutely.
And before we go,
Well,
I forgot to mention our Sunday show, which is our main show that we do, is Piercing the Veil on Midwest Night Watchers on YouTube, Rumble, Spotify. We are thinking of changing our time from 6 p.m. possibly to 4 p.m. throughout the winter. See how it goes. And so if you haven't already subscribed or hit that notification bell, you might not be able to find us unless you do that, because we're going to be switching times, and we may be adding a new show throughout the week, which will probably be at 4 p.m. We're going to try to keep the times the same and make it easier. So we haven't picked a day yet, but we're thinking about adding another show during the middle of the week, and then we'll have our main show on Sunday.
that's true. And don't forget, there is another show with two old geezers called The Road Less Traveled.
That's
Every
right.
Monday night, 9 o'clock p.m. Okay. Who knows what they'll get into next time. All right. And John Fortman, I will have to look into a Patron. I'm not too swift on all this stuff. Okay. Gerald knows he's had to help me out a lot with all this stuff. I'm not too swift.
Patreon. Seems like a lot of people are going to that because the YouTube and all these other platforms are messing with people's money that are donated, and we take that very seriously when somebody gives you money and then we're not able to use that money, to do what they want us to do with it. YouTube won't allow us.
And that's true. They don't want the truth out there. If you stand up for the truth or try to find the truth or start exposing stuff, you're going to have some pushback. That's just the way it goes. We know that. Gerald and I both know that. We've had it before in the past, and we'll definitely have it in the future. Absolutely. That's part of this game. Okay. That's part of the game on the chessboard of life. And that's the way it goes. But yeah, I will look into a Patron. I have to try to figure out how you set it up, however, but I will definitely be looking into that. And I ask you all to definitely keep me and Gerald in your prayers. Okay. Absolutely. And we appreciate you being here tonight. And your support, like I said, is paramount to us. We very, very, very much greatly appreciate it. Absolutely. And so until we get together again, looking down that road to adventure and knowledge, or wherever road we end up on, it might be a side road sometimes, but we're still traveling the road less traveled, right, Gerald?
That's right.
So we appreciate you being here tonight, and keep the faith. And until we get together again, Godspeed.
Night, everybody.